in 6.6, there is one thing that I want to, that we need to cover before we can do 6.6, which is solving quadratic equation. So to solve a quadratic equation, this is the first thing, or this is the one thing that you need to know, is the zero product rule. So what is the zero product rule say? So the zero product rule tell you this is for any integer a and b, meaning whatever number a can take, whatever number b can take, right? Any number you can think of for a and any number you can think of for b. If a multiplied to b, if a times b is equal to 0, and it have to be equal to 0, ladies and gentlemen, it cannot be any other number. This property, this rule is only tell you that a multiplied to b have to be equal to 0. So this is what they tell you is if a multiplied to b is equal to 0, then either a is equal to 0 or b is equal to 0, or both a and b is equal to 0. Okay, because if you think about this thing here, let's say if a is equal to 0, b can be 1,000, right? B can be negative 1,000 or negative 300, whatever you want b to be, because whatever b is, b multiplied to 0 is equal to 0, because anything times 0 is just 0, right? And similarly, doesn't matter what a is, a can be 1,300,000, right? And if b is equal to 0, well, 1,300,000 times 0 is still 0. So the property or this rule tell you that if they are multiplied, either one of them is equal to 0, and they can both be 0, right? So that's the first thing, or that's the most important thing that you need to know, is if you have two items multiplied together and it's equal to 0, then a have to be equal to 0 or b have to be equal to 0. Okay. The other thing that you will see later, which is the standard quadratic equation. The standard quadratic equation is just basically tell you that we have something times x squared plus bx plus c, and that's what we have earlier. That's what our quadratic expression were. And if you have something like this, the only thing different, the only thing new is it's equal to 0. And as you can see, if you remember, every time we solve, or every time they say that we have a equation, in order to be an equation, it have an equal sign. Okay, so let's take a look at this thing here. Those are the definition, and we will mention more about this definition in a bit, but let's take a look at the example 1, right? Let's take a look at example 1, and let me ask you to do this thing here, or let me show you the screen. So let's say example 1, this is what they ask you to do, is solve. And let's say A, they ask you, or they give you x plus 7 times x minus 5 equal to 0. Okay. So let's say that this is our problem. Our problem is x plus 7 times open parenthesis x plus 7 times open parenthesis x minus 5 equal to 0. So how would we go about to solve this? So you say, wait a minute, if you remember the other one, this is what they tell you is if A multiplied to B is equal to 0, then either A is equal to 0 or B is equal to 0, right? That's what our zero product tell us. So you say, well, there's nothing similar to this thing here. Well, think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Do you agree that whatever this parenthesis is multiplied to whatever this parenthesis is, right? So we have one parenthesis, we treat this one parenthesis, we say that the first parenthesis is like your A term. And they multiply whatever the second parenthesis is like your B term, right? So this is all we doing whenever you see this problem. This is all you doing is this, and this is the only thing new. Ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, this is the only thing new in chapter 6.6 is they tell you that if you have this item, if you have a 2 parentheses and multiply together and it's equal to 0, all you need to do is take the first parenthesis and set it equal to 0. Take the second parenthesis and set it equal to 0. So all I did was whatever in my parenthesis, which is x plus 7, I say x plus 7 equal to 0. Whatever in my second parenthesis, x minus 5, I take x minus 5 and I set it equal to 0. Because that's what they tell me. If we have two things and they multiply to give you 0, if we have two things and multiply to give us 0, one of them got to be equal to 0, or the other one got to be equal to 0. So believe it or not, this is the only thing new is you take each of your parentheses and set it equal to 0. And if you set it equal to 0, let me ask you guys, how do we solve here? How do we solve for this item? And how do we solve for this item? Do you agree that this thing here, x, do you agree that this thing here, x plus 7, to solve for x, I need to get rid of 7. And to get rid of 7, do you agree that I need to subtract 7? And if I subtract 7, 0 minus 7, this thing will give me 0 minus 7 to give me a negative 7. And again, solving, as you can see, is nothing new. This is chapter 2. This is how do we get x by itself. And in this case, to get x by itself, I need to add 5. And if I add 5 to both sides, 0 plus 5 to give me 5. And this is the two answers you have, ladies and gentlemen. You have x equal to negative 7 and x equal to 5. Okay. And if you're in doubt, this is what you can do is you can check this item out. You can check your answer. And if you check your answer, this is the first thing they tell us, that x is equal to negative 7. Meaning wherever I see my x, I put in a negative 7, right? Wherever I see my x, I put in a negative 7. Do you agree that this is what I have? Negative 7. Negative 7 plus a negative 7, that will give me a 0. Negative 7 and negative 5, that will give me a negative 12. Do you agree that 0 times negative 12, anything times 0, this thing will be equal to 0? And again, as you can see, 0 is equal to 0. That's one of my answer is negative 7. And you can see if I put in 5, 5 take away 5 is equal to 0. Doesn't matter what the other parenthesis is, as long as one of them multiply to give you 0, or as long as one of them is equal to 0, then that will be your item. Okay, so this is what we have. And again, let's take a look at, let's try another one. This the first time you see it. Some of you probably have a small item in terms of, kind of a little bit confusion in what to do. But let's say B, this is what we have is, let's say if I have 2x plus 9 times x minus 13 equal to 0. So if you look at this thing here, it's very consistently the same. And if you have this thing here, this is what you need to ask yourself is, do I have something multiplied to another thing and is equal to 0? The most important thing, as you will see, ladies and gentlemen, me say a lot is my equation equal to 0? And in this case, my equation is equal to 0. Life is good. How good? Very good. Why? Because as long as it's equal to 0, all you need to do is take the first item, which in this case 2 plus 9, and set it equal to 0. Take the second item, x minus 13, and set it equal to 0. So that's the only thing new. Believe it or not, that's the only thing new in chapter 6.6 is they tell you take each of your parentheses and set it equal to 0. And if you can set it equal to 0, now we can solve. How do I solve? Do you agree that to solve, I need to I need to subtract 9 to the other side, right? And if I subtract 9 to the other side, 9 take away 9, that will cancel out. And this is my answer, or my new problem is 2x equal to -9. How do I get rid of the 2? Do you agree that to get rid of the 2, I need to divide it by 2? And if I divide it by 2, this is what I have. X is equal to -9/2. So that is my answer. One of my answers is x equal to -9/2. On the other side, how do I get rid of this 13? To get rid of the 13, I add 13 to other side. Therefore, my answer is x equal to 13. That is my second answer. And if you in doubt, you can plug this item into for your x, right? Plug 13, take away 13, 0. Doesn't matter what the other item is. One of them is equal to 0. The whole thing is equal to 0. If you plug this item -9/2 in here, you will see that this item, the parenthesis will be 0. And doesn't matter what the other item is. One of them is equal to 0. The whole thing is equal to 0. So question, first of all, question between this problem A or B, question on the steps and question on the procedure here. Let's try C. Similarly, let's try C, and let's say if I have, doesn't matter what the problem is. Let's say x minus 5 plus 7x plus 11 equal to 0. Okay, let's say that this is our problem. 3x minus 5 in one parenthesis, 7x plus 11 in the, and it's equal to 0. And if it's equal to 0, like I mentioned, when you look at this problem here, do you agree that this thing here is equal to 0? That is a checked. It's equal to 0. Life is. What do we do after we verify that it's equal to 0? Well, all you need to do is take the first parenthesis and set it equal to 0. Take the second parenthesis and set it equal to 0. That's all you need to do is take the parenthesis and set it equal to 0, and the other parenthesis. And so all you need to do is, once you do that, all you need to do is solve for x, get x by itself. And x, to get x by itself, we did this in chapter 3. We did this before, which is solve for x. And to solve for x, we need to do the opposite operation, which we need to get rid of the 5. And to get rid of the 5, I know that I need to add 5 to the other side. And if I add 5 to the other side, this is what is 3x equal to 5. And how do I get rid of the 3? I divide it by 3, so x is equal to 5/3. That is one of your answer. And again, how do I get rid of the 11 on this side or this problem? We treat them as a problem, ladies and gentlemen. To get rid of this item here, I need to subtract. Therefore, I have 7x equal to -11. And I divide this by 7. I have -11/7. That is my second answer. Whenever your quadratic is, doesn't matter what quadratic is, as long as you have a quadratic equation, most of the time you will have 2 answers. Okay, you will have 2 answers. It depends on how the problem is. You might have 2 positive, 2 negative, or 1 positive and 1 negative. So hopefully you guys say, oh, Mr. Tran, this seems like it's easy. Give me a lot of this problem on my test, right? Give me a test, just this type of problem. Because if we have this problem, all you need to do is take each of the parentheses, set it equal to 0, everything else just get x by itself, right? Well, as you can see, or as you expected, right? It's not, well, it's not that easy. It's that easy. It's just that you need to do an extra step. So let's say that example 2, and they will ask you to do solve by factor. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is your problem. This is our goal for today. This is our goal for today. Our goal for today is how can we solve this particular problem? So to solve this particular problem, well, first of all, the direction tell you to solve by factor. Okay, so before we can solve this, and again, we know that we need to solve this. Why? Because there's an equal sign. And now let's take a look at this thing here. Do you agree that whatever this item is equal to 0? And that is what you want. That is what you're looking for. Okay, you're looking for something equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, later on you will see we have to do something else. But if it's equal to 0, we are good to go. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem here. Let me erase this. Let me erase this problem. Let me ask you this thing here. Do we know if you remember this from yesterday, when you look at this problem, is this a hard problem? How do you know if it's an easy problem, or how do you know it's a hard problem? Well, is there a number in front of the x squared? If there's no number in front of x squared, this is an easy fact. Now, so in order for you to solve this, ladies and gentlemen, in order for you to solve this, and again, the direction told you solve by factor, the first thing you need to do is you need to factor. And if you factor, do you agree that this is an easy problem? And if it's an easy problem, all you break your x into 2 parentheses, right? Break down your x into 2 parentheses, and is there a number that multiply to? Is there a number that multiply to give you, add together to give you 7? And some of you guys saw that. So me that the factor of 12 is 4 times 3, and 4 is 7, right? So we got that, right? And again, is this new? Is new? Not, right? We knew, we just factor, ladies and gentlemen, we only factor it out. What is new? Let me fill in this. Is what in example 1. In example 1, I give you the 2 parentheses and it's equal to 0, right? Example 2, have 2 parentheses, 0, which is after you factor, this is what we got. We have 2 parentheses and it's equal to 0. So now what do we do? Well, do you agree that to solve, we need to take the first parenthesis? What is the first parenthesis? The first plus 4 and set it equal to 0. What is the second parenthesis? The second parenthesis is x plus 3, and we take the x plus 3 and we set it equal to 0. We have 2 problems. How do I get rid of this 4? To get rid of the 4, I need to subtract. And if I subtract, everybody see that we have negative 4. 3, to get rid of 3, I need to subtract. I have x equal to negative 3. those or that is your two answer. And as I mentioned before, when you have a quadratic equation, which is when you have an x squared, you will have x to the third. You will have, that is not quadratic. X to the third is a cube. If you have x to the 4, you will have 4 answer. We won't get there. We only have x squared in this. Okay. But take a look at this item, really, gentlemen. Let's go back. So we did this. We solved for x. We got one answer, -4. We have two answer, -3. What does that mean? This is what you have is if you, and again, you don't, I won't do it again, but if you want to check your answer, everybody see that my problem is this. My problem is x squared plus 7x plus 12 equal to 0. Answer, this is what they tell you is we see an x, you plug in -4. So do you agree that we have -4? All right, let me color code it. This is 7. Wherever I see an x, I plug in -4. -4, sorry. And again, everything is stay the same. See that my problem is x squared plus 7x, x squared plus 7x plus 12 equal to 0. So if I plug in -4, do you agree that -4 times -4, -4 times -4 will give me a positive 16. -4 times a positive 7 to give me a -28. Everything else stay the same. Do you agree that 16 minus 28, that will give me a -12? And what is a -12 add to -12? Well, -12 add to -12 is equal to 0. I got that. I find a number. I find one number for x. Plug into this equation is equal to 0. And that's what our goal is. Our goal is, this is the question I ask you. Pick me a number for x. Whatever number you pick me for x, that you plug it in and it's equal to 0. You found me the answer. One of them is -4. If you plug in negative, everybody see that if you plug in -3, we have -3 square plus 7 times -3 plus 12 in red. And again, -3 times -3, that is 9. -3 times 7 to give me -21. -21 plus 12. As you can see, similarly, 9 take away 21 to give you a -12. And -12 plus 12, that will give me 0. As you can see, that is your two number that when you plug it into equation, is give you 0. Okay, and that is our objective, ladies and gentlemen. Our objective for today is no matter what equation I give you, can you find me a 2 number that when I plug it in there, can you find me a 2 number when I plug it in here, which is, let's say, x squared minus 2x minus 24 equal to 0. The question I ask you is, pick me 2 number. Whatever number you can come up with, pick me a 2 number for x that when I plug it in here, I square that. When I plug it in here, I multiply to -2, and then I subtract 24, and that will give me 0. Do that. Do this thing here. Before you can do anything, the first thing you want to recognize is you equal to 0. Problem is equal to 0. Life is good. Secondly, we know that this thing here is a square. So meaning we need to factor first. you know, if you factor this, now that's why yesterday I asked you, when you look at the problem, can you identify to me, is this an easy problem or a hard factor problem? And hopefully you guys say it's an easy factor problem. Why is easy? Because in front of the x squared, there is no number. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give you 24, but subtract to give you 2. Is there two numbers multiplied to give me 24, but subtract to give me 2? And again, if you in doubt, right? If you in doubt, just list every single number out. As you can see, 1 times 24 is 24, 2 times 12 is 24, 3 times 8 is 24, and 4 times 6 is 24. 5 doesn't go into it. The next number is 6 times 4, which is you repeat it. So is there two numbers multiplied to give me 24, but subtract to give me 2? Hopefully you guys say 6 and 4, 6 times, and 6 minus 4 is 2. And again, 6, the bigger number, will get the sign of the meter term. So what have we done here? Have we done anything new? Well, not yet. We haven't done anything new. What we did was we factor, and that's what we spent the last days in factoring, right? So we haven't done anything new. And the only thing new in chapter 6, the only thing new in chapter 6.6, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you have, is x minus 6 equal to 0, x plus 4 equal to 0. Everybody see that? That's the only thing new, believe it or not, right? They take what, I don't care, take that z, put it equal to 0. Take the second parenthesis, put it equal to 0. And once you put it to equal to 0, we go back to the test number 1. How do you solve for this? To solve this, to get rid of the negative 6, I need to add 6. And if I add 6, do you agree that I have x is equal to 6? And to get rid of the 4, I need to subtract 4. And if I subtract 4, x equal to negative. So those are the two answers I have. When I plug it in, if you in doubt, you can always plug it in and check out your answer. You can always plug it back into this original problem. You can always plug into this original problem and see if it's worked out to be equal to 0. Let me ask you, first of all, question, after the two problems we did in the step, in terms of the procedure, and question is we're looking for. All right, let's try another one. Let's try another one, and let's say C, same thing go. Let's say we have x squared minus, let's do plus x. Let's make it easy. 4x minus 32 equal to 0. So this is, we have x plus 4x minus 32 equal to 0. And when you see the equal sign, when you see this equal sign, you should have in mind that we need to solve. If not, you look at the direction will tell you solve by factor. So the first thing we need to do is we need to factor it, okay? So is this an easy problem or hard problem? I think I hear some of you guys say easy. Again, why is easy? For those who say, oh, how do you? There's no number in front of that, ladies and gentlemen. There's no number, or in the sense that is equal, the number in front of x squared is equal to 1, right? And that's why it's easy, because we don't need to take the a, we don't need to do the AC method, okay? If you look at this problem, if there's no number in front of x squared, that's your easy. All you need to do is ask yourself, is that number multiplied to give you 32, but subtract to give you 4, right? And if you in doubt, we know that 1 times 32, 2 times 16, 3 cannot go, 4 times, and all you have, right? 5 cannot go into it, 6 cannot go into this, 7 cannot go into 32, 8 times 4, you back to where you stop. So looking at this thing here, hopefully, and again, you got this, right? Times 4 is 32, 8 minus 4 is 4. What do I have? One of them is positive and one of them is negative. Why is the 8 is positive? Because the bigger number get the sign of the middle term. And again, what we did everything, but we didn't do anything new, right? We did a lot, but none of the thing that we did a lot, they asked us to solve, we haven't solved, right? The only thing we did was we factor. And that's why yesterday, if you remember from yesterday, I told you, in order for you to be good, you have 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, okay? So once we factor, what do we need to do? Well, once we factor, everybody see that all you need to do is you say x plus 8 equal to 0, x minus 4 equal to 0. Everybody see that our goal is we get to the 2 parentheses, and once you got to the 2 parentheses, you take each of the parentheses and set it equal to 0. Here is a smooth sailing. Why? How smooth? Well, hopefully you say to get rid of the 8, we subtract, and we subtract to both sides. Therefore, x is equal to -8, one answer. To get rid of the 4, we add positive 4, -4. They cancel out. X is equal to 4, your 2 answer. So again, solving is not new. Solving is not new. You just get x by itself. Factoring is not new. Factoring, you just is this right here, which is set equal to 0. Take each of your parentheses and set it equal to 0. That is the only thing, believe it or not, the only thing new in chapter 6.6. Question here. Question on what we did, how we get to the answer, and what we're looking for. You 16 and 2, 16 times 2 is 32, but 16 minus 2 is not 4. If you put in negative, -4, remember, if you put in -4, it's not going to be correct, because if you take a look at, if you checked, if you put in -4 square plus 4 times -4 minus 32, if you do that, you can see that this thing here will give you a positive 16. But this right here, this is where your problem probably come in, is this will give you a -16, because a -4 times 4 is a -16, and -16 and positive 16, that is 0, and 0, as you can see, is not equal to -32, is not equal to 0, right? So the answer is not -4. The answer have to be positive, right? My answer is +4 and -8. Is that +4, and that is the only number, well, beside -8, right? If you put in +4, then this problem will work out because you have this item here. 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 4 is 16, 16 and 16 is 32, and 32 take away 32 will give you 0, right? If you put in -4, it's not right. That's why this answer, again, the factor, the -4 answer is +4. Is that clear, Will? Does that answer your concern or your question? Okay, so let's try another one. Let's try another one here, guys. Well, we have a lot more to go, not just another one. Let me ask you guys to do this one for me by yourself. Let me change it to y instead of x. It's the same. Let's say y minus y minus, let's say 15y plus 56 equal to 0. Let's say, let me ask you, if you see this problem on your homework, on your quiz, on your test, on your final exam, see if you can solve this problem. So if you look at this thing here, hopefully some of you guys or all of you guys say this is an easy problem, right? I'm missing something when I solve. Well, before you solve, you need to factor. What is your factor, right? This is 56, right? So do you agree that this is what we have is we put in the y in one parenthesis and we put in y in the other parenthesis, right? We have two parentheses, the first parenthesis and the second parenthesis. So is that two number multiplied to give you 56, but add together to give you 15? And hopefully you guys say times 7. 8 times 7 is 56. 8 plus 7 is 15. What are my sign? My sign is one of them is, well, not one of them, both of them is negative, right? Negative 8 times a negative 7 is a positive 56. Negative 8 and a negative 7 will give me a negative. So that's the factoring. That's the first thing to do is we need to factor. So once you have this thing here, how do you solve? Well, to solve, we need to take this minus 8 and set to 0. We need to take this item, y minus 7, and set it equal to 0. So now that is your two problem. Your one problem, right? The two problem, or one problem is this item. The second is that item. So how y by itself, how can I get y by itself in this item? Well, to get y by itself, I need to add 8. And that, do you agree that y is equal to 8? Because negative 8 and positive 8, they disappear. And now, how do I get y on this side? Well, to get y on this side, I need to add 7. And to is 7, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the two answers we have, right? So again, that's all there is in terms of, and again, hopefully you guys see that the solving part for this one here is once and done, right? We just either add or subtract and move it over to the other side, right? But in order for you to solve, right? In order for you to solve, you need to know how to factor. And that's the key, right? If you don't know how to factor, you will not get to the solving part. So, and that's why I keep on factor, because there is no way out of this class without knowing how to factor. I can guarantee you guys that, because factoring is basically the most important thing in this class, okay? Question here with D. I saw someone private chat, you got the correct answer. And again, that's good. If you don't want, you give your classmate a chance. If you want to give me the answer and just private chat me so that the student won't get distracted. Question, if you did not get this, hopefully you see where your steps, where your misstep is so that you can change it. Let's try another one, right? Let's try another one. Let's try E. And again, let's say if I ask you for Z, and again, doesn't matter what the letter, ladies and gentlemen, I just give you a letter so that you can see that the letter is just a letter, right? Z square, let's plus 11Z, let's do minus 26 equal to 0. So Z squared plus 11Z minus 26 equal to 0. See if you can solve for Z. hopefully easy. Why do I say easy, or why am I keep on saying easy? 26, there's only 2 items, right? There's only 2 items, meaning 1 times 26 and 2 times 13, right? There's no other number that multiply to give you 26 beside 1 times 26 and 2 times 13. Agree? And again, because of the 26 is negative, we think in terms of subtraction. So do you agree that 2 numbers multiply to give you 26, but subtract 11 is got to be 13, right? 13 times 2 is 26. 13 minus 2 is equal to 11. Which one is positive and which one is negative? Well, the 13, the bigger number will get the sign. So this is the factor part, right? This is the factor part. And later in German, I want to point out right here and right now is take your time when you do the test. Whenever your test is next Monday, take your time to do the test, because this is the factor, but it's not the answer. You type your answer in the computer, and sometimes you overthink, or you think too fast, and you type in 13 comma negative 2 as your answer. But that's not right. That's the factor. The answer is, what do? Well, we take the z plus 13 and set it equal to 0. We take the z minus 2 and set it equal to 0. And in this case, we know that the answer is z is equal to negative 13 and z is equal to 2, right? So again, those are the 2 answers. So the factoring part is basically your answer is the opposite of your factoring item. Okay, so make sure that don't jump the gun and say the answer is 13 comma negative 2. That is your factor. That is not your answer. Answer is to 0. So here come a small obstacle. Some of you guys will hang up this thing here. What will you expect, or how would you expect them to, make a little bit difficulty? So let's put a small star here, and let's go back to my x squared. Let's do x squared. Still make it easy. X squared plus 3x equal to, let's do 54. So here come our problem. Here come the obstacle. If you look at this problem, remember last time, in the beginning, first thing is remember that equation must be equal to 0. Is this thing equal to 0? Is this problem equal to 0? And again, like I mentioned earlier, when it's equal to 0, life is good. When it's not equal to 0, it's not bad, right? You just have to make it good, right? How can we make this thing here? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to move the 54 to the other side. How do you move the 54 to the other side? Well, we need to subtract 54. You subtract 54, see that if I take 54 minus 54, it equal to 0. And that's what I want, right? I want it equal to 0. And now what is x squared plus 3x minus 54? Well, x squared plus 3x minus 54 is just x squared plus 3x minus 54, because all of them are unlike term. And like I mentioned, you want to is you ask yourself, is this problem equal to 0? And in this case, if it's once it's equal to 0, we proceed like before, right? We just do like before, which in this case is that 2 number multiplied to give me 54, but subtract 3. And hopefully you guys say that yes, there is 2 number multiplied to give you 54 and subtract to give you 3, which is 9 times 6 is 54. 9 minus 6 is 3. Which one is positive? Which is a positive and a negative 6. We are not done, right? We just factor. Now to solve, we need to say x minus 9, right? We need to minus 9 to give me x equal to negative 9. And we need to take x minus 6 equal to 0. And again, plus 6 to the other side to give you x equal to 6. So again, you see that the only thing different is we need to manipulate our equation so that the equation is just factor, set equal to 0, solve. If it's not equal to 0, you need to somehow manipulate them and get it equal to 0. Okay. Similarly, let's try another one. Let's take a look at G, and let's say if you have x squared, let's do x squared. Let's do x squared plus 36 equal to 12x. Again, similarly to the previous problem, is this item equal to 0? No, 0. So how do we get it equal to 0? Well, to get it equal to 0, do you agree that I can subtract the 12x? And if I subtract the 12x, do you agree that 12x minus 12x is equal to 0? And that is what I want. But when you move it to this side, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you put them in descending order. Don't do this because if you were to do this, you will get confused because you say, well, why is my 12x on the, I never see the 12x on the outside. And hopefully you don't do that on your test, because when you do this thing here, hopefully you guys say that you have is x squared minus 12x plus 36 equal to 0. You have to put the x squared first, the x in the middle, and no x, the constant at the end. You need to put them in descending order, meaning the highest exponent, then the one less. Okay. And this thing right here, ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned earlier, I said that most of your square you two answer. It's just that the two answer you have is the exact answer. Okay. Is that two number multiplied to give me 36, but add together to give me 12? And hopefully you guys say yes, there is a 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36, and 6 plus 6 is 12. What are my sign? My sign, they are both negative. And if they are both negative, do you see that this is what I have is x minus 6 equal to 0, x minus 6 equal to 0, right? Take the first item, set it equal to 0. Take the second item, set it equal to 0. And again, what do? I just add 6 to the other side. Therefore, I have x equal to 6. And again, on this one here, I side. So it's just the two answer we have is exactly the one number. Okay. So make sure this is your goal. Make sure that if it's not equal to 0, some way make it somehow, some way make it equal to 0. So let me try, let me ask you guys try this one for me. Let's do H, and then we would do a little bit harder problem. Let's say H, let's say x squared minus 11x minus 7 negative x. Remember, your goal is if it's not equal to 0, manipulate the equation so that it's equal to 0. And if you manipulate your equation, basically you combine like term. So what are your like term and what do we do when you move it over? So hopefully you guys see that in order to get rid of the phi x, because it's negative, I need to add. But even though when I say we add, when I move it to the other side, I need to combine like term, and in this case, one of them is positive, the other one is negative. That's why I subtract and kept the sign of the larger number, right? So again, Germany, the sign is opposite. The factor is negative, but the answer should be positive 7 and negative 1. Okay, so looking at this thing here, hopefully you guys see that this is the easiest factor. If you guys, whoever cannot factor this one here, we are in a very bad shape, guys. I don't know what to tell you, because there's no other number, right? There's no other number that multiply to give you 7 and subtract to give you 6. I mean, if you can find it, let me know, but there's no other number, right? The only two whole number multiply to give you 7, but subtract to give you 6 is 7. If you subtract, one is positive, the other one is negative. So this is what you have is negative 7 and positive 1. Okay, so negative 7 plus 1 will give you negative 6. And then when you factor this, that is your factor, but your answer, remember, your factor is negative 7, but your answer is positive 7. Your factor is positive 1, but your answer, because we have to move it to the other side, your answer is negative 1. So that is, the factor. Some of you guys wrote me the answer. Remember, when you subtract, the bigger number middle term. Always when you need to get right here. So if this thing were to be positive 6, then if this thing were to be positive 6, then this thing will be positive and this one will be negative, right? Because you subtract, when you subtract, you kept the sign of the larger number. So the larger number will get the sign of the middle term, right? When you add, they have the same sign. But when you subtract, you have to keep the sign of the larger number, okay? So it's depend on your middle sign, determine which item to give you the larger one, okay? If you look at the previous, well, this one here you add. If you look at this item here, if you look at this item, you subtract, right? Because of the 3 is positive, your larger number, your 9, is positive, right? Because of that. Okay, so again, you guys still can see my screen, right? So looking at this thing here, okay. So looking at this thing here, let's do one hard problem. And how hard is hard? It's not really hard. It's hard is because you don't know how to factor. So let's do this monster problem, and let me put 2 star here, HI. So let's say this is the reason why I say it's hard is because it took you a long time to factor them. So let's say if we have something like this, and we probably did this already, but let's say we have where minus 5x minus 4 equal to 0. So if you go back to this thing here, we know that it's equal to 0. We know that it's equal to 0. We know life is good again, but it's not that good. Why? Because if you take this thing away, and I ask you, is this a hard problem or hard factor or easy factor? You will tell me that this is a hard factor. Why is hard? Because there is a number in front of the x squared, right? Because there's a number in front of x squared, and this is what we did yesterday. Because there's a number in front of x squared, remember we need to do that a method, right? If you go back and look at the previous 7 problem, there's no number in front of x squared. And that's why if there's no number in front of x squared, it's an easy problem or easy factoring. This one here is a hard factoring. We need to do the AC method. So before I insert in the 0 and all those other stuff, this is the first thing you need to do is you need to factor. Everybody see that we need to factor. So to go back to the factor the hard item, after this thing here, we need to take the A times the C. And if you take the A times the C, will give you a negative 24. Is there 2 number multiplied to give you negative 24, but subtract to give you 5? And this go back to the question that you have. How do we know which one is positive and which one we track? One of them is positive, negative. Do you see that the 5 is negative? So the bigger number will get the sign of the bigger number will get the sign of the middle term. So in this case, the 8 will be negative and the 3 will be positive. And if you remember from yesterday, after we find a multiple, it's not as easy as the other problem where we just put the A in one parenthesis and the 3 in the other parenthesis kind of did that too. It's just that we need to put this as in, negative ax plus 3x, and then we bring down the 6x squared, and we bring down a 4. And like I mentioned yesterday, it doesn't matter if you put the -3 and not -3, the -8 in the front or -8 in the back, you will still get the same answer. So this is what we have. Is the reason why I say that this is a hard problem is before we can solve, before we can get to the set it equal to 0, we need to factor like this. And when you factor like this, we need to factor by grouping. And if you factor by grouping, this is what we have. In the first group, what can you take out? Hopefully you guys say that in the first group, you can take out a 2x. And if you take out a 2x, 2 going to 6, 2 going to 6 will give me 3x, and 2 going to -8 to give me a -4. And in the second group, if there's nothing you can take out, reminder, you still can take out a 1. And if you take out a 1, what are you left with? Well, there's nothing new. You only still left with the 3x minus 4, the 3x minus 4. So in this case, we see that the 3x minus 4 is the same. And if they are the same, we bring it to the outside, which is 3x minus 4. And what is the leftover? The leftover is 2x plus 1. So again, this is why I say that this is a hard problem, because after, what have we just done? Well, the only thing we did was we all of that work, ladies and gentlemen, and all of that work was chapter 6.3, right? All of this work is you factor them out. So if you know the AC method, if you want to do the AC method, you need to do the AC method. If you like the guessing method, you can do the guessing method. This is what we did so far. What we just did was we just factor. We haven't solved yet. In order for you to solve, you have to get x by itself. And that's why I say that this is a hard problem, because it took us longer to factor. Because once you factor, the only thing new in chapter 6, and I keep on saying this thing here, but the only thing new in chapter 6.6 is you take this 2 item, you take whatever in your parenthesis, and you set it equal to 0. That is all that you do. And then I need to add 4. And if I add 4, I have 3x equal to 4. How do I get rid of the 3? I divide it by 3. Therefore, x 1/3. And again, I need to subtract 1. Therefore, my answer is -1/2. So those are your two answers. Your two answers is, one of them is 4/3. The other one is a -1/2. And again, I like, how you look at this problem, you say, wow, all of this work if you are good with factoring, then this problem, like I mentioned, is very doable. The only reason why chapter 6.6 is hard is because we are struggling with factoring. Okay, so again, first of all, question here in terms of this problem here. Question in terms of I. Well, if you don't have question, let's stop here for today. I know that you only see this one here, and I say it's hard, and we only spend one problem, but we will do more of this problem here tomorrow. So we will do more of this type of problem tomorrow. So today, I hope that you guys can solve something like the previous 7. This one here, we will spend more time. We will spend more time tomorrow. So, second time around, hopefully you guys see that it's a little bit easier. But question here, ladies and gentlemen. Well, if you have question, please stay back. If you don't have question, be safe out there. Have a good day. We will do more of this problem tomorrow, and then we will do the last section, which is 6.7, and then we see how it goes tomorrow. If you don't have question, have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow, or you guys will see me tomorrow. If you have question, please stay back. Okay, have a good one, guys.